missiles to underground cities, and they fighting wars in whole cities underground. We don't see this stuff up here,
Mm. Mm.
right? So they use the cover of the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, in order to give us a war to look at, because the war expenditure is not going to match if there's not an active war somewhere.
Okay.
So the military, like it's a hole in the Pentagon's pocket. They did failed their seventh consecutive audit. This
Mm.
one they missing over $500 and some billion. Where the money at,
Yeah, where is it?
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then so we know where it's at. They can't spend a damn and it ain't tracked.
Mm-hmm.
So they know where it went. If they say it went to Black Ops, that meant they went to something that they wanted to keep secret from the people.
Right. Mm. Chief, you know how they say that in order for one kingdom to rise up, another one has to fail?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on President Trump? Do you believe he will eventually step down so that the chiefs on the land will stand up? Or is he a transitional president?
He's 100% a transitional president.
Okay.
He was hand selected by the military and the
Okay.
tribes because of his activism in the casino effort.
Makes sense.
Right. He knew that the people that they trying to pass off as us ain't us.
He said it, didn't he?
Yeah. They don't look like Indians to me. And they don't look like Indians to Indians. And you might say with all of your great wisdom that they look like Indians to you, sir. But they don't look like Indians to me, in all due respect, and they don't look like Indians to Indians.
Mm-hmm. So with him being, go ahead.
Then it's also the prophecy of the man in the red hat from back in 1973.
You are here. I'm glad that you, and even you are here too. So, without any further delay, let's get to it. Let's get to it. let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on and what has taken place even in the last 7 days that we all need to be aware of.
Hold on 1 second, guys. I have an issue with you.
Okay. Oops.
I had another app just start playing on its own.
Oh, okay. There you are. There you are. There you
Yeah, so it has been a lot going on. Um, I was telling people that Kamala job was to fail miserably as the fall of the whore of Babylon, right?
okay.
The purple and the pearls for the inauguration was the signal and showed you where you was at in the book of Revelations.
Now, what inauguration are we talking about? The one that was Biden's inauguration, or what?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay, now when she came in, we forgot that Trump was standing in front of the church with the upside down Bible. And we
okay,
forgot about Nancy Pelosi tearing up the minutes in the Senate in front of the camera,
I remember that. I remember that.
right? Those are two different contracts being closed out on the same day.
Okay,
One is the biblical contract for the blood oaths, and the other one was the fraudulent contracts for the corporation to govern the people. Now, what
and
led to that was the January 6th thing.
mm-hmm.
Remember when the dude took the land flag, the one with no fringes, he sat at Pelosi's desk, right? And he was behind the Admiralty flag. That was the transfer of jurisdiction. So when you go back and listen to who sent him, you find out he was working with a shaman from the land, but he was also working with military top brass, right? We forget about that. Okay, so that was reclaiming the republic from the Democratic corporation. right? Democracy is told to us in a fictitious form.
Mm-hmm.
When you read all communist documents about the adding of communism into a governmental system, they all refer to it as democracy.
Mm.
Right? So remember, Noble Drew Ali said the elephant is our friend. Right? He also said, I left a watchdog for the people, and the watchdog is the elephant. And then the Hopi prophecy talked about the man in the red hat. Right? That's recorded from back in 74, before Trump was even considered for the presidential campaigns. Right? So the MAGA hat, the red hat, went from a white hat to a red hat to a black and gold hat. Colors is flipping the different organizational redemptions that's being made through the MAGA process. So you got tribal operations going on in the midst of standard government operating procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So you watching the tribes do something, allowing the government to artificially run, and the tribes is piggybacking on that artificial narrative in order to get clues across the land in everybody's face behind their back. Only the ones who know gonna know what the codes are.
Okay.
Right? So the Schumann resonant go crazy when on election day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's a massive response from a solar flare.
Now, it's the solar flare. You know, people are talking about. Some people talk about the solar flare as it would be something to be feared or to stay away from. And then I hear others saying, you know, it's a good thing, and it's only going to, if it has a negative effect, it's only on those that shouldn't be here
It's
on
gonna
this
turn
planet.
some people's clocks off. Their time is up.
You mean they tick us, like,
Yeah.
right?
They life script has ran its course when that voltage go through. That's what they call the great solar flash. They're looking for it to happen any day now. Then when
So we
that
haven't had it
happened,
yet.
right. So when that happened, it's supposed to have a massive effect on the Schumann resonance because the Earth and the Sun is communicating. In order for Earth to get rid of the parasites, the UV rays have to be calibrated to the frequency required to get rid of the parasites.
And the
Earth read
parasites
the
are.
human parasites by mitochondrial resonance. The mitochondrial is the powerhouse of the cell, and from the source of the power comes the source of the remedy. So it has to be able to communicate what the DNA say back to the source,
Okay.
right? So then the the mitochondrial is represented in the soil of the earth. This how you could tell a better DNA match would be the DNA to the soil for us than it would DNA to a tribe.
Okay.
The people from the land have a DNA sequence that's characteristic of the soil of the land. They already know this, though. This is common scientific information that they just don't talk about. It's like they don't push it to the forefront because they don't want you to know they can test the land to see if you from it, matching it to your blood.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Have
That's
they
what they
been doing
used to.
any of that? Have they been doing any of that anyway? All along when they've taken a little sample of blood from the babies and
They always, anytime they taking blood, they experimenting on it and investigating the developments in the genome. That's why they
so
take so much to run the tests that require a drop.
and then all of these centers around that are paying drug addicts and everybody else to get their to donate blood. The purpose is probably more nefarious than we think.
Yeah, well, the vampires got to use the blood banks in order to stay stocked up with enough human blood to survive.
Um, Never thought of it that way.
That's why they call them blood banks.
Because you can make it deposit, you can make a withdrawal.
Right. And the ones can go to the cash bank and then deliver to the blood bank and exchange a currency for the value in blood.
Really?
Yeah, why you think they pay you for blood? Then they also can use the cover story of emergency hospital usage to
Yes.
justify the massive amounts of blood that they collect. It ain't that many people getting transfusions on the planet. So they taking plasma, separating cells. They running the red blood cells through hemoglobin testing to determine the processing ratio of iron to oxygen in the blood that's causing the rust factor. Because eventually the iron is going to be replaced back with the magnesium, and it's going to switch the blood ratio in the hemoglobin. It's going to look more like chlorophyll, and it's going to change and alter the color of the skin. That's all part of the ancient record. That's why they paint all those deities as green, right? Because when the solar flare go, it changes the chemistry of the genome. This is why we're not 12 strand no more. It's been upgraded to now the same amount of information that required 12 strands only require 2. But you don't have to be 150 feet tall no more either. When you
Let's
had
go back
12.
to that. Let's go back to that for a minute. Just let's park there just for a minute. About so when they start to speculate who built what and whether or not it was there was ET help assistance or whether or not there were giants that actually facilitated a lot was done. This when you say that, are you talking about our people and we've come down just like computers have come down from room size to you can hold it in your hand.
Right, that's called upgrades. That's called
Okay,
upgrades.
all right.
Now, what in the Darwinian evolutionary theory, they got what's called missing links.
Okay.
This is because of laboratory intervention in the genome. When you realize
So
that we've been doing genetic engineering since the beginning of humanity, and we was creating avatars to operate in this system of 3D operational matrix.
and
Somebody got smart and figured out that if they gave us amnesia in the matrix, that they can recycle the matrix over and over and nobody will ever jump through the infinity loop.
do you feel that when people have these so-called near-death experiences and they come back and they say, I saw this, I saw that, it was beautiful, I made a decision that I need to come back, because I wanted to see my child grow up or die, whatever reason, is 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 that a just an illusionary process step in between leaving out of the body and making a decision to, like you said, when you said they don't go through the infinity loop, but they loop back into the third dimensional reality? Or is that what's happening? Or are they really in a place of decision where they could go through, come back as someone else, or make a decision to go on to a higher
Okay,
dimension? Is there no choice at that point?
look, it's like this. They got a book of life. If they start falling off the path in a book of life, they have what's called a emotionally catalyzing event of massive proportions that's written in a book of life in order to snap them out of the 3D slumber and reconnect their spiritual self to their higher consciousness.
Hmm.
If you look at their life that was in shambles most of the time before the catalyzing event, and then you look at the gratitude and the revelation and the different way they live their life after the catalyzing event. So in everybody's life, whether it's when your parents got to go, when you lose a child, those are called emotionally catalyzing events. There's nothing in this reality that you didn't know you was going to experience before you came. That's the beauty of the trick of the amnesia, to see if you can be pure enough in heart to see your way through the darkness of illusion.
And it's funny that they call it amnesia, because I've surmised that the time between the assignment of what one is going to do, the in life, and the birth, they the child generally at average spends 9 months in the womb in a liquid fluid called amniotic fluid.
Mhm.
Amniotic fluid, I said, lulls the being of the soul into a forgetfulness state of amnesia, and needs to the journey begins when the lights or whatever, when the child comes through the waters and is here to remember the assignment that they forgot in the amniotic fluid, the amniotic fluid. But I know I'm not saying it right. It's called
Ambionic fluid.
whatever it is. It's
Mhm.
amniotic. It's amniotic because it's amniocentesis. So it's amniotic fluid. But I kind of surmise that time is the wash the memory sort of away, in the sense that it becomes a quest. The
Well,
life becomes a quest.
they discovered something in psychology that causes people to forget former lives, and it's called light shock therapy. It's where a bright light is shined in your face and it give you the effect of Men in Black with the
That's
flasher.
right. Mm-hmm.
If they do it to a newborn, that's why all of the hospital delivery room got the baby under them bright ass lights.
Mm-hmm.
It's to shock the optic nerve, which causes a amnesia in the brain for a period of time. They never let the mother and the child properly pair bond because her colostrum will begin to repair the amnesia if she run the cycle through before the placenta is released. The chemicals from her colostrum going through the umbilical cord reactivates the baby's entire psyche. And then it's discovered that, oh, he's been flashed. Let me fix his optic nerve. And the mother's colostrum is that's his immune system. And they replaced it with vaccines and replaced the mother's milk with Similac and Enfamil. It's all part of keeping us in a stupor.
Yeah, I know that there are a lot more push towards, babies being breastfed, but, and that's not necessarily coming from the hospital side, but they actually do have people who teach them how to, how to nurse their babies and so forth. So I guess they figure a small amount. They can't do it to everybody, because we don't know what's in that stuff, the Similac and the Enfamil and all of that, whatever else is out there these days. We don't know what, it's designed to do, what chemicals are in it, and what it does to the newborn or the child in its developmental stages. And that's why I'm grateful for all of the doulas out there, and the ones that not only follow the mother through the birth process, but even help them with the beginning months and stages of the
Yeah,
child.
that's where the whole concept of a nanny came from. Because the doula was the caretaker of all of the children. She overseen their birth. They would come visit and stay with her as the nanny, as the secondary mother for a mama can go do other stuff like work the fields.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you had the big mamas, you had the nanas, which was the aunties that was the big mama to her clan. They all helping the young mothers with the children while they helping with the general labor of maintaining of the family. We lost track of who we was, but some of us back to reinform everybody of where we came from so that we can remember who we are.
Right.
Once
Right.
we remember who we are, they can't run that BS on us no more. And now the youngsters got a hold of the reality of it and the receipts, and they coming up with more receipts showing proving the point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So somehow they're overcoming, or have maybe have overcome the effects of the bright light, because I'm sure many of them, were born in those regular those settings that we now know are not that are detrimental to a
Well,
child.
a lot of the young mothers now was getting advice from midwives and from doulas that they wasn't get 25 years ago.
Hmm. Right.
And then a lot of them want to do water births and home births now. You know, so the children is reflecting that because they are, when they go to the playground together, they exchanging information. We don't pay attention to the children on the playground playing because they establishing hierarchy in they age bracket, in they size groups, right? They are problem solving that their minds can comprehend, and this is where they come with all of the questions all the time. They come back from the playground with all of the questions. Daddy, why is this like this? Who is God? Where is he at? Right? They was talking about that on the playground with the other children. The conversation is different now.
Yeah, you see the pictures, the little clips, the little shorts, and they're showing the babies, the infants, the newborns, and the looks on the, like, they're not even coming back looking like babies. They're coming back looking like old men and old women. I mean, when I say old, grown men and grown women in baby form, and they have these expressions that,
Like,
like,
oh, I done came back to this BS.
I saw one where they had like a something on it says, "This is the 13th time I've been here, and I'm here. I'm with another poor family." Something. It was something like that. So, but what you're seeing in the babies is, I mean, I know of some children who both of the I don't know if they got more than two now, but the first two children, I think, were talking before when it was like 3 to 4 months old. They were talking, you know what I mean? And they were in the same bloodline, the same, siblings, but they were talking, and not just goo goo gaga, but able to, to have a little conversation with the parents, and of course is, developed since then. And so you know that, like, when you talked about the upgrade, changes are taking place,
Yeah,
evolutionary changes are taking place, and like you said, at the what's been going on forever is the fact that if we go all the way back, and it goes further than this, but if we just go back to the book of Genesis, which is Genesis, you got the first time we generally saw that there was some um, genetic work going on, because you said they were saying, well, let us make man in our image and in our likeness and our image, whatever it is. And so, we read that, but then we were taught that it was one God that did that. But you can't be a us and be one. Us
look,
got to be at least two or
and they
more.
tell you that it's only one God in the Bible, but they tell you in the same Bible that the God of Moab, his name is Chemosh.
See, I never even seen that in all the study I've done, and that's actually in the Bible.
It's actually in the Bible.
So it seemed like that if that was the case, it would have been a case of, you got the God of,
He's not the only
original,
one mentioned in there either.
the God of,
But
like, that gods were not. It was not the creator God, but it was like an Elohim, one of the Elohim,
mhm,
as opposed to a creator God. And then you have the schizophrenic appearing God who creates, loves, and then says kill everything, and the women and children, rape the women, take the women, kill the men, do. And then you think, is God crazy? And then when you read the other, books that the Bible we know now has come from, you get to, you're getting a Yahweh versus, a Jehovah, or an Inky versus an Enlil. If you get deep in it, so you got one God saying, you and that woman, we to put you together, you on a timetable, you get together, every so many weeks, and you can get it on, and whatever you can do, because we need to create more of you. Then you got the other gods stepping in, saying, who they call a snake or a serpent, saying, listen, you can do what you want to do with who you want to do it with. You're not bound to this. And matter of fact, you can put some clothes on, and then when this other God shows back, who told you were naked? So you see, it looks like confusion, and then you have the same one God saying, "I'm jealous, and you should have no other God before me." So if there's no other God to be before him, that makes no sense right there. But people gloss right over it.
So the god Kimash is mentioned several times. Judges 11:24.
Hmm.
1 Kings 11:7 say King Solomon built a temple to Kimash on the Mount of Olives.
You see that?
2 Kings 23:13, King Josiah destroyed the temple to Kimash as part of a purge of 9 Yahwistic religions.
Right. So
Second
Yahweh
Kings,
was that. Would that be
Yahweh.
Yahweh? Yeah,
Anything,
but would that,
right. So Yahweh, as he come out of the Sumerian pantheon,
right.
right? Now, a lot of the other deities is in there too. I'm gonna go over some of them with you, but the last one is Jeremiah. Wait a minute, no, it ain't. 2 Kings 3:26-27 say a Moabite king offered his son as a sacrifice to Chemosh in the hopes of winning a military victory.
And how do you spell Kimash? If anybody wants to look it up,
Chemosh.
C
Jeremiah
M
E.
O S M O S H.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one is Jeremiah 48:7. It say Jeremiah prophesied that Chemosh and his followers would be carried into captivity and brought shame to his worshipers. Right. And then it says Chemosh was the God protector of the Moabites, while Yahweh was the national God of the Israelites. The Bible portrays Chemosh as a false God and Yahweh as the only true God. So you got another God called Adad in the Bible. He's commonly referred to as Baal Hadad. That's one of the sons of Enlil.
Okay.
Right. Now in the Bible, they translate his name to mean the Lord thy God.
Okay.
So it's telling you, they got you thinking they still talking about Yahweh and they talking about Baal Hadad.
Mm.
They translate Baal as Lord. Baal is the Canaanite God, right?
Mm.
So all of these different Adonai is another name for Enki, right? So now you got another different Anunnaki God,
Okay. Yeah.
right? Then when they talk about I was thought my stars be above the kingdom of God or something like that about in Isaiah. That's a
Isaiah.
woman talking about her son. And they telling her that her son ain't the righteous one, and she letting them know he the righteous one and the rightful one. And they telling us that this is a story about some devil named Lucifer. But
Mm.
Lucifer mean light bringer, the one that bring right. So in Greek culture, he's called Prometheus, right? He stole the flame of the gods and gave it to the mortals.
Yeah.
But what is the flame of the gods? Knowledge. And this is why the Baphomet got a torch on top of his head. It's the torch of knowledge, reaching to what's called Ein Sof. Ein Sof means vibration of Sophia or vibration of wisdom. So now you're talking about a frequency and the vibration. That's the Holy Sephira, right? So now we're talking about an arc degree at the top. All this stuff is tied back in through these biblical narratives that they gave us as metabytes of information to be operated upon at a later date. Because the people who's telling the story obviously don't know the story they telling and where it came from. So it took years of different people researching the history in order to put it all together.
True.
But then you had people came in with what's called Victor's history. Victor's history is military operational historical narrative in order to control the people you conquer with the least amount of resistance from the conquered people.
And
So
does
this
they
is,
say, yeah, that whoever is victorious gets to write the story
yeah,
and
the victors write the history.
write the history? Yeah.
Right. So now the way that they keep us from rebelling about their presence on the land is to disassociate us from the land. So the Oxford, uh, no, Notre Dame, where the academic slave narrative was hatched at, gave them a operational manual for disassociating a group of people from the land by telling them they came from somewhere else that has nothing to do with them, and you find a similarity between the two people to convince them otherwise. So they use skin color and hair texture.
Right, right. So yeah. And again, they also put everything in an Eastern context when I've always had this burning, question about where do I fit into this? Where do we, or not just me, but where do the people in America, at America, where do we fit into the narrative? So everything, the way they rewrote their revisionist, theory, where they do things, they put everything in an Eastern context. It happened over there, and there's no real, as they try to figure out how they was going to connect us to how we got over here. But the one thing I was telling somebody the other day in terms of where we come from, I said anybody else who supposedly commits a crime, if you will, punishable by deportation in America gets shipped back to the country of origin, except for us, unless you came in here, from Africa in the recent times with, with a visa or something. I'm talking about the majority of people who look like us don't we get sent right straight to jail, which is part of the prison industrial complex. And nobody, if that's the case, we should be deported. But you can't deport us because we're already on our homeland. That's one that in and of itself needs to be brought up as why is that to them? We know why, but we need to let them know that we know why that
No,
they don't want us.
that's part of our war, domestic warfare, that 99% of the general population was totally unoblivious, been fighting their whole life right in front of them without their knowledge.
Right.
Right. The government already declared that we was the enemy, the people of the land. They had bounties on us for our scalps. And how do you know it's them? Because of the woolly hair. But
Mhm.
then they turned around and tell us that the people they brought over here, Mongolians they brought over here and sicked on us, right? They telling us they was the Indians doing the scalping, right? But it was really the settlers brought them people with them as servants.
Mhm.
And this is why they have been privy to a lot of our cultural norms, because somebody had to maintain the culture when they ostracized us on our own land. Right. So they discover during the wars the character of us as the people of the land. And many of the ones that they brought over here from Mongolian wars with the Huns, the Vedics, and the Khans. That's who all of the Ottoman Empire, the early Roman Empire, this is who they was fighting, and this is who they made slave villages out of. And this is where they would go and take their children and do whatever they wanted to do with them. Because they was not looked at as human, they was called goyim,
And
meaning
you
chattel, meaning chattel, as in the herds of the human animals, right? So they didn't have any regard for anybody that was not from their bloodline stock of Enlilites,
Mhm.
right? Then they eat us, literally. Going back to the blood banks and the vampires sucking the blood. We wore wolf pelts in war as a camouflage that we used to use to hunt. You had people from the old Mississippians that roamed the plains. They wore bison pelts, and this is why the American government said for every time they kill a bison, they kill one of us, because they thought that the bison turned into us at night and attacked them. But
Is
we
that
was
where like
walking
the
them.
Skinwalker thing comes from? Skinwalker?
That's yes, that's where it's come from.
Okay.
So they telling them that when they take the pelts off, we look like kinfolk. This is where the werewolf term lichen come from. They look like kin, but they not.
Right.
They wear wolves. The whole vampire wars with the werewolves, as they told you in that movie Twilight, was against the natives of the land and the colonizers that looked the same, which showed itself as the George Washington Challenge. And everybody else was supposed to ostracize both sides so that they could stay out of it. So this is where you use your doctrine of racism. That's called Protocols of Zion. You apply that method along with torture tactics and false history. And now the people don't know who to trust
That's true.
because they don't know how to recognize the sardines in the can as different fish. They think we all the same fish.
Absolutely. And that is interesting though, when people think that one kind of fish is just a whole bunch of little fish crammed together and pickled up and whatever, mustarded up or whatever you do to them, but they're not all of the same. And
There
that's
is
a
there is no real
it's not
small
even
tame.
called that.
Yeah,
It's not a fish
it's
finger.
named after a place over in Sardinia, is what it's named after, and that's where they practice taking the little fish and pickling them and making them into, uh, you know, stored stock.
Right, right.
Right. This is same thing with anchovies. It all come from over there. That's Italian.
But isn't it true that the sardines, though they call them sardines, there's a whole bunch of different fish, and they're not like us. They call us black, Negro colored, lump us all together, but that's not the truth. That's not factual. But that's the label that's been put on them. The label that's been put on our people.
Yep.
Very,
So
very similar.
they put us all in prison together and just say prisoner.
Prisoners, right? Inmates. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But everybody in there, some people,
Are
I didn't been
innocent.
in. Look, a whole lot of people innocent. Some people got overkill on the sentencing, and some people deserve to be there. They should not be in the roaming around free in the world. I've been in there with them. I done looked in the eyes of some very, very, very terrifying individuals. No soul whatsoever.
Mm.
They have no remorse or no misgivings. They just as much give you a hug as cut your throat. But you just can't keep people trapped in a cage. That's not normal human behavior. It's just they start ruining them as children on purpose so that when they become adults, they can't function in the society. Most of them come from horrible backgrounds. And a lot of them told me, and I can't unhear that stuff. I was like, man, why you have to tell me that? Now I got to be haunted by the same thing that haunts you. To think that the one human would do that to a child. Now I got to live with it just like you do. I didn't want to hear that. Now I can't unhear it. I can't unknow what you told me. I done had cellmates that can't sleep at night because they get tormented in their dreams.
Mm.
Tormented from the dirt they did.
From what they did, yeah. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
we did so much dirt. I had one bunkie. He was in there for attempted murder, but he had beat to all of the murder cases that they had arrested him for. He had like 17 murders,
Wow.
and he had out date.
Does that mean
And
he had time when he was going to get released?
yeah, I had more time than him. He had something like 8 years. I had 18. But when after he was in the room with me for about a week, I said, man, they don't need to let you back out on the street. You horrible. There's a whole lot of them in there worse than him. You know, the people that care about their loved ones in there, you should see about them. Because the ones that don't get seen about, the staff doing bad, worse than the inmates. If you know how to take care of yourself, you make alliances and you protect it among the peer group, the inmates. But if you don't have people checking on you, you fool for the officer because you have nobody to tell outside that care about you.
So you have these vicious men and women who are supposed to be peacekeepers who actually have their play out their darkness on the inmates in there because they can, because they have a
Yeah.
position of
Well,
authority.
the slogan is power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
And the guards is like gangbangers. And in most of the places, they got special forces in there. We don't know this. The people out here don't know this. Some of them, they call them the goon squad, the head busters, the 6'1s, right? Because everybody got to be over 6'1s. They call them cap splitters, the wrecking crew. Depending on where you at, they got a different name from them all over the country, but it's the same thing. Their only mission is to come in and wreak pain on the inmates by slapping them upside the head with axe handles and billy clubs, spraying them with gas. We don't know that stuff. Regular people don't know the stuff that go on to the inmates in there, as they all prisoners of war in the first place because all of the judges is here illegally. The police is a foreign occupying military force. The sheriff is supposed to be arresting their ass. But the last time the sheriffs tried to arrest the police department, it was such a public disaster that they had to stop the practice because the police is a slave catching force dispatched out of London, England. This is why the police that's discovering this now is given the opportunity to resign before they declare martial law and clamp down on when they told you that the military was given permission to use deadly force in support of the local law enforcement. That's because the National Guard has been sheep dipping special forces agents out of different branches of the military to support them, because some of these billionaires and millionaires have private armies, and when you go get them, you need an army. You need a Navy SEAL team. You need an Army Ranger force. The National Guard, from their standard operating procedures, is not prepared for special forces combat. So they had to put the bill in front of them in order to make it a law, in order for the other branches of the military that's been sheep dipped by the National Guard to be an operational force in backing up the National Guard and rounding up all of the dirty players.
Dirty players. Let's go back to 2020 or in that period of time when they were talking, things used to drop all the time with letters, the 17th letter of the alphabet used to always, remember, that was coming out, and they were giving all of this info out, and intel, I guess they were calling it, with regards to who was getting exposed and who was getting processed and who was getting sent to, places, that were designed to house criminals of their type. Was that just mere propaganda, or
Okay, they just put a bill before Congress. It's a continuity in the absence of 100 and more senators and congressmen. They obviously know that it's going to be at least short 100 senators and congressmen when the revelation comes out about the tribunal, so they have to cover the process of government ahead of the disclosure to the people.
So
Right.
the government, but the current administration, I mean, or the current Congress did this because they know amongst them on their own selves that some of them are going down, is what you're saying, and so they
No,
felt like a duty.
no.
No,
No.
okay.
So okay, so let me tell you, they was running a psychological operations through the political arena using the presidential office as the focal point of a psychological operation so that most of the people will never figure out that there's an active hot war taking place underground all over the earth.
So we're talking
So,
about the and stuff,
right.
or
So they've been special forces teams in an alliance around the world to go into underground tunnels and get the people that's been stealing children.
okay.
They've been feeding them to what's called archons. Archons are reptilian humanoid creatures that live underground. They do not come above ground because they were seen too much in what they call the Dark Ages.
Hmm.
They had tunnels that took them from Buckingham Palace in London, took them to the Vatican in Italy, that took them to the Swiss Alps. And Switzerland was the largest